in the jazz land all over the world. I'm your host, Roger Penzabene, and welcome back to Jazz Cats. Uh, we're building a jazz community all over the world. So, listen, the reason I said welcome back is because we took a little time off um, to close out the year and things like that. So, we're back on a different day and time. So, look forward to seeing us on our new time slot and everything. I'll tell you more about that later because I want to use all the time tonight for the guests we have in tonight. And I'm going to take this time, I'm going to abandon my monologue that I normally do to tell you all about all the exciting things we got coming up for the new year. But I need to read this because this guy is very dynamic and accomplished when it comes to art, the musical arts, especially so with jazz. So uh, we're just going to call him Lafuki for right now, and he'll tell you more about his self. But Lafuki is a composer, an organizer, a guitarist, and cultural curator in Detroit, who views music as a spiritual practice that brings about healing and unity, and whose art practice centers around black ancestral legacy. We're going to find out more what he means by that. He leads Creative Improvisation Ensemble, Lafuki and Divine Providence, and has, I'm sorry, I lost my place, everybody, because I'm doing this off my text. And Divine Providence, and has released 4 albums: Inner Horizons, Elephants and Mountains, First Light, and Love and Light. Lafuki currently is working on several projects, including X Roads, a traveling exhibit on the history of black Muslims in jazz, and Auto Phi Sci. He's going to have to pronounce this one. Millennial, a creative research music collective to explore and experiment with the philosophy and music methodology of the great Dr. Yusef Lateef, which was featured at Carnegie Hall and Cranbrook. Lafuki holds a master's degree from Wayne State University in Near Eastern Studies, specializing in the Arabic language with a concentration in the literary genre of tasliya,
Perfect.
praise poetry of the Prophet Muhammad, all praises be upon him, and bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan in Africana Studies and History. So with all that said,
That's a
without
lot.
further ado, welcome my good brother Lafuki.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invite. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. So I normally don't have all that big bio, but you, like I said
It's
at
a
the
lot,
start, you're very
Yeah.
accomplished, and I want to give you your proper dues.
Thank you. I really
So
appreciate
I need you to pronounce that
Okay.
word I could, and then
So,
break it down.
so don't feel bad about that because it took me a while to figure out how to say it myself.
Hmm.
When I rediscovered it, it's pronounced autophysio-psychic.
Okay, audio physical.
Yes, that's a
Physics,
term that was
psychic.
created by the great Dr. Yusuf Abdul Latif. He used the term as opposed to jazz
Okay.
because he believed, as well as other jazz musicians at the time and currently, that the word jazz just doesn't complete the overall picture of what the music they were playing.
Okay. So I'm thinking if you break down the word, it's kind of trying to incorporate audio, visual,
Uh,
and
well,
just what
so auto, so
intellectual.
it's 3 words, and plus he had other terms of what the music he was playing, but he decided to use this one because it's more encompassing what he's trying to say. So it's audio physical psychic. Auto means music that's delivered from the person's intellectual self.
Okay.
Physio is a physical self, and that means a person's physical body and also his instrument. And the psychic comes from a person's spiritual self.
Okay.
So it comes from music or art or whatever is the output comes from a person's intellectual, physical and spiritual self.
Now, and from your viewpoint and his, does the Akashic record play anywhere into the spiritual history of
The Kashik record play?
the theory
Uh,
or the
mm,
the Akashic records, or
Well,
is it Akashic? I'm
well, I would say that anything that deals with where we talk about the spiritual aspect, whatever you perceive as what your spirituality is,
okay.
and that's the way we interpret the world. Those three components is to he believed, and I also believed, in order to produce something from a person, those three things have to be considered.
Yeah.
Whether the person thinks he's religious or not,
Right,
it's,
right.
it's some kind of, and that's why I would summarize. That's why he used psychic instead of religion or spirituality, because it could be something. You could be a spiritualist, right?
Yeah.
But it's still whatever you do, really, you're informed by
To
those
tap
three
into
components.
those
Yeah.
higher
Yes.
frequencies.
Yes.
So yeah, only reason I mentioned the Akashic records is, from my understanding, is it's a universal history uh, record of everything that ever was, ever happened through the whole mankind
Okay.
creation
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Okay.
No matter where it was in the
Uh-huh.
world, that's the one universal history
Yes.
that I guess
Yeah.
if you get on that wavelength,
Yeah,
you can tap
they call it
into
the there's different sages in the music.
Yeah.
They call it by different names. Some people call it the ether. Some call it the all encompassing sound.
Yeah.
Some would say in Sufism it's called Sautu Sarman, the sound of the sound that's left over from when creation was brought about.
Okay.
So there are different ways that people tap into that, and I think as musicians and even as athletes, you tap into something that's beyond yourself, that's without explanation, and that's when you're heavily involved in it. You lose yourself, and all of a sudden things come automatically. And we have to question ourselves: where does music coming from in general? We say music, but it's just a word that comes from. We don't know where it comes from.
Right, right,
The inspiration. So
Yeah, because then that the etymology of that is going to break down the sound.
Yes.
And then I'll go all the way back to the person, the
Yes.
voice,
Yes.
then the
Yes.
thought, and
yeah,
all this
all
kind
of
stuff.
that. And so the creation was created from a sound.
Yeah.
And scientists would say the Big Bang.
Mhm.
And so even though that's scientifically explained, the sages of, let's say the metaphysics of sound, they would say that sound is still there, and just tapping into that wave.
Well, and that's again, I mentioned that universal record is because you had in your bio, it said ancestral.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
that's the only way I know
Yeah.
that we can tap in
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
all those.
absolutely.
And when we say, so we had ancestors, all of us
Yeah.
have ancestors that we have no way of knowing who they
Yes.
are because they're
Yeah.
hundreds or thousands of years
Absolutely.
old for whatever bloodline
Yes.
you come from. So that's why I had mentioned that. But I want to get into more of some of the projects you got going on.
Sure.
But I want to use the rest of this time to kind of know more about you.
Absolutely.
So tell us about you.
Well, I'm. It's a long story. I try to break it down. So I'm originally from California,
Okay.
Oakland, Berkeley. They call me hippie sometimes. I came to Michigan maybe over 20 years ago. I would say the turn of the century. For the last 6 years, I lived in Detroit.
Okay.
I had to move to Detroit because I came into music late, right? And that was when I was living in Flint.
Okay.
And being an undergraduate going to U of M, I discovered music. And at the same time, I was studying Africana studies, and I started to notice the correlation between cultural, political movements and music, and how they cross-sectioned, right? Like for instance, you can listen to Stevie Wonder's albums, the ones he made in the '70s, and you can determine what was happening at the time.
Okay.
It's very prophetic, from as far as being political, social, and culturally relevant. You could just listen to his music and know what's going on in times.
And one thing I know about Stevie, he incorporated a lot of his spirituality.
Absolutely,
His music.
that's a form of auto as a psychic. And he's using the knowledge that he has, his body, which is his body and his instruments, and his spirituality in many ways. So that's defined as autophysical psychic.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to get this out before break. But I noticed, you kind of like myself, some gray.
Oh yeah, I
So
got a lot
you,
of gray.
yeah. So you got a little time on
Yeah.
the planet. So coming from
uh,
California, now I've never been to
mm,
California, but I've heard about it, of course, all
yeah.
my life, right? So I, to the point, I know it's a different vibe, a different
Oh yeah.
way, a walk
Yeah.
of life.
Mhm.
Now that seems to me, from what I know about being here
Mhm.
and throughout these
Yeah.
decades of Detroit, what was the
Mm.
coming from a culture,
Uh,
man, a totally like the weather's
yeah.
totally different. It's
Totally different.
sandals and
Yeah.
everything to
It ain't like
come
it is in here
here,
now.
and it's more open air
Oh,
and
you mentioned the
palm
sandals.
trees and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
here it's like really
Yeah.
urban, and you
Uh,
say you just came here really a short time ago, so Detroit was kind of beat down, man. We
yeah.
were
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
blasted, busted,
Mhm.
ghetto,
Yeah.
and so
Uh,
what was it like
uh,
making that mental
uh,
spiritual adjustment as an
okay.
artist, not as a
Okay.
resident, but just as an artist?
Yeah. So, okay, I did wear the Birkenstocks. I was for many years called a bohemian hippie from people in Michigan.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe they saw something in me and things like that. But I tell people all the time. The reason why there's a couple of reasons why I love Detroit.
Okay.
One is because my grandmother actually came from Detroit and moved to California, and I never got a chance to connect with them, and I'm still trying to find them.
Okay.
Um, Another reason is because Detroit, believe it or not, reminds me a lot of how Oakland was. There's
Okay.
a lot of similarities. For one, it's a black city. Oakland is a black city. It's not. I don't know. It ain't now.
So that's Northern
It's
California.
Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So Detroit reminds me how Oakland was in the 80s and 90s,
Okay.
and so that's how I'm able to like say, okay, I can deal with this because I'm part of both from
So you
both
mean, and
worlds.
so I'm trying to translate for everybody. So tell me if I'm right. The urban element and those landmines, those
Yes.
cultural landmines. So you come here,
Mm.
all Californian out.
Yeah, I'm
So
like,
you
hey,
like
y'all, this is
drawing
it.
attention to
Yeah.
yourself. So, but you
Uh,
were able to navigate it and cope with it because of
Yeah, it's
you
familiar
knew the
to me.
game. You knew that
Yeah,
game, right?
it's familiar to me
Okay, got you.
in a lot of ways, and culturally, spiritual, and artistically.
Okay, so we're gonna take a quick station ID, then we're gonna pick this back up. So everybody, listen, Happy New Year to you all. I was remiss in telling you that. You know we love and appreciate you here at WJZZ. You're watching Jazz Cats on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media outlets. Like, follow us, share, subscribe. Hey, we're trying to do that Shannon Sharp thing. We're trying to get in the millions. So, hey, help us out, and we'll walk and crawl and all that before we run, but we really need your support and we appreciate you. So, and comment, call us 313-355-6018. You can call. We're gonna open the lines at the halftime, but you can call from anywhere in the world and talk to Lafuki and just support us and look for all our attractions and events that we got coming up, and tune in to WJZZ Detroit Jazz Radio Entertainment by going to WJZZDetroitRadio.com. It'll tell you everything about what we got going on in the jazz world. So with that said, let's go back to you, brother. So yeah, so you get here, a little bit of a culture shock, but it doesn't stop you because you kind of you was braced for it. So now let's get to the art scene. So that's the surface. So how did you find this art music scene compared to California? Because in my history, a lot of our musical based talent, musicians, writers, producers, etc., went in the 70s. They migrated to LA because Motown went there, and that took most, not all, but it took a big part of our music culture with it. And then they kind of set up to rival New York as the West Coast music industry with the movies and everything. So how did you find it as an artist? Was it totally different? Was it better, worse? What have you?
Coming from the Bay Area, particularly when I was young, the music scene was kind of like DIY, very independent. I mean, we had artists come out of there like Tony,
Okay.
Too Short, MC Hammer, um, and a couple other bands I can't think of right now. Um, so we had our hometown heroes, and they were Bay Area was full of talented people. It just hands down, because we're talking about black culture,
Right.
When there was
I know Tupac spent a lot of time in Oakland.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we knew Tupac before. Of course, he was big. He was a urban legend.
Yeah.
Before he got made it big in the early '90s, I think late '80s, one of the two.
Yeah.
But we knew him when I was in junior high.
Yeah, he was with Digital Underground.
Oh
in the
no, he
late
wasn't
80s.
even with Digital Underground.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
took before that.
Yeah, he was before that. Yeah, Digital
Okay.
Underground didn't come till later.
Okay.
Tupac and the Humpty Dance and things like that. That didn't come till later.
Okay.
Oh, I was thinking about In Vogue, the other band, In
Yeah.
Vogue. So we always had hometown heroes and musicians and athletes and things like that, but not on the scale like L.A. and things like that. Right?
Okay.
But L.A., from what I understood, respected Oakland because of what we were bringing and things like that. But like I said, I was late coming into music. I wasn't into producing or making music when I was in California. It didn't happen until I actually came to Michigan, ironically.
Okay.
And with that, like I said, with my studies, it's just opened my mind and curiosity. And so by the time I got to Detroit, um, I just started to notice all this richness, particularly with the jazz history
Mm-hmm.
and the pedagogy and the things that used to happen here with jazz, and also with house music. I mean, it's just amazing. I was just like, wow, I didn't know that this was here.
Right.
You're talking about like Griot Galaxy, Farik Subay, Yusuf Lateef, they're just legends. Alice Coltrane, and the list just goes on.
Donald Byrd.
Yeah, Donald Byrd,
Yeah.
Grant Green. So the more I discovered it, the more I became interested, and the more ideas of programs I can come up with that hasn't been talked about enough.
Well, and so we got you here, and it took you. You started out in Flint, which is a whole another vibe from
Yeah,
Detroit.
baby Detroit.
Yeah, and so
Also, Flint has a lot of talent too.
yeah,
And when I was getting into music in Flint, I knew that I had to move to Detroit because Detroit has a bigger, um, it's has more supportive structure than Flint.
Right.
Flint has a lot of talent,
yeah.
and from what I understand, there's a lot of talent that came from Flint that became famous in the '70s.
Yeah, I know Jazz gave us Bobby Humphreys.
Yeah.
That's who I'm thinking of right off the top.
Mm.
But I want to make sure we use the time to get to some of these projects because I really want to get deep into them.
Absolutely.
So now, back to Dr. Yusuf Lateef.
Mhm.
What made you single him out versus, like you say, we got all these
Yeah.
legends
Yeah.
and masters and all this here. How did you zero in on Dr. Lateef?
Wow. So that is a good question. So I was commissioned to do a art exhibit by Halal Metropolis. Halal Metropolis was an organization that focused on Muslim visibility in Detroit metro area.
Okay.
So they knew I was doing research on black Muslims and jazz. And they asked me to do an art exhibit. And when I did that, what I did was I put an art exhibit displaying the albums of Muslim black jazz musicians since the post World War II and led up to hip hop. Basically, it's showing the intersections of black Muslims and jazz, whether they're Muslims or Muslim adjacent, and how Islamic thought permeated jazz at the time and helped it move along.
Right.
And that's a story that hasn't been told enough. So that was my concentration. And while I was doing that, of course, I had a special section on Detroit. I had Wendell Harrison, I had Mike Mumford, I had Griot Galaxy, and of course Yusuf Lateef, and there might be a couple of others,
Okay.
like Grant Green. When I saw Yusuf Lateef, I was reminded that I read his methodology out of his psychic years ago, and I took a look at it. I was like, this is something interesting. Why is this point? Why is it speaking to me right now? So I went back and talked to a couple musician friends. One is Angel by the Weed in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
good friend of mine. And we were discussing, particularly during the the lockdown, the pandemic,
Okay.
about how we can recenter the narrative of jazz from this commercialization of it back to its spiritual and African roots. And I say, hey, Yusuf Lateef's methodology is a good way for us to get in the doors and start talking about this to universities, because his method, not only his methodology is a good use, but also his writings that surrounds it,
Okay.
his paintings, his writing, of course, his music, and his scholarship. He's a PhD.
Okay.
So universities and art centers can't deny he has credibility.
So you're, of course,
You know.
So I count him personally as a legendary jazz
Yeah.
figure. Some of his art, like I didn't know he was a painter.
Yes.
I didn't know he was a philosopher.
Yes.
I only know him for his jazz music,
Yeah.
and I know in his heyday he was considered an avant-garde.
Yeah.
So he was always doing his own thing.
Yes.
So share with us, when you say his methodologies, what are some of the things that was unique about his method or technique versus the mainstream?
Well, I think what helps out is, see, what happened was when jazz was taken out of the neighborhoods, they were housed in universities,
Okay.
and the process of gatekeeping pursued.
Hmm.
And while that pursued, you had the neighborhoods in which the music was from was void of that culture, right? And to plug WJZZ, trying to get that culture back is very important,
Right.
and that's why I highly support this effort.
We appreciate you.
So, what was the original question?
That was his methodology.
Oh, his methodology.
What made him
makes it
distinct?
different? What makes it distinct is that he was of the stature. He could actually, on an intellectual level, and an undeniable level, counter that narrative.
Okay.
Right. So his methodology is useful because it actually gives a voice from someone within the culture that can explain this music rather than someone dictating and overseeing the political, social, and cultural and spiritual aspects of why that music is important.
Okay.
What way to have it. So using his methodology as far as saying out of his psych, this is from where the music is coming from, it's a powerful way of saying we own this and we can, this is what it's about.
I got you.
Yeah.
So now to celebrate that and to broaden the scope of Dr. Lateef and yourself and art in general, so more of the world can appreciate those methodologies and philosophies. It's my understanding you have a project
Yes.
that's coming soon that you're working on.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we've done a number of projects, which mainly circled around, like for instance, going to university. It really circles around 3 or 4 things. One is, of course, lectures in classrooms, open workshops. What I mean by open workshops, people can come there and see us conducting on the spot. You know, it's more like an open theater type of
Okay.
thing. And there's panel discussions, and then we end it with a musical performance. So that's been the method we've been doing
For attraction.
Yeah, for attraction and
Fundraising.
for when we're being invited. So those 3 or 4 components we use it. So we've been doing that for 2 years.
Okay.
Different universities and art centers. What we want to do right now is trying to have a even more pinpoint concentration on this. What I mean by that, bringing back the legends that has something to do with Yusuf Lateef. Either they played with him,
Okay.
most likely played with him, or have some kind of affiliation with him before, because those legends needs to be honored.
Okay. Is it anybody like you said, they played with him or with their association? Anybody you can
Yeah.
mention right now?
Yeah. So since we've been doing this for the last 2 years, we've had so many elders get back with us
Okay.
and, that knew him, just to show appreciation of what we're doing, and we get their blessings, and particularly from Auntie Aisha, Yusuf Latif's widow.
Okay.
Every step we take, we ask her, "Is it okay? Is this, is this up to the level of honoring him?" So legends like Ralph Buzzy Jones, Adam Rudolph, those two I can name right now.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we plan on inviting them this October, in the month of Yusuf Latif's birthday, to have a audiovisual psychic symposium. Um, that's concentrating on explaining the methodology and also honoring him in Detroit.
Okay.
And it's very important. So um, I'm being very careful with this because this is called legacy work,
Okay.
and I'm trying to honor it as best I can. And one of the best ways I can honor it is to bring back the people that who used to work with him and study with him, and have them speak on this,
Okay.
and to show a continuation of this tradition.
So this is going to be a full-fledged celebration that all of Detroit can be proud of,
Yes.
and jazz enthusiasts
Yes.
around the world can appreciate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And do we have a fixed date for that, or is just it's
There's
in
no
development?
it's under development right now.
Okay.
We're getting all WJZZ as also helping us out with that. So we're very grateful for that.
Yeah.
So we're just getting everything together right now, and this is still sort of like a DIY thing. But I think as we put it together, people come through, because then when they hear Yusuf Latif's name, they still remember him and honor him, and just it's like John Coltrane. You mentioned
Yeah.
his name.
And his wife Alice
Mm.
is from Detroit.
It's from Detroit,
So
and the relationship between Coltrane and Yusuf Latif is another story that needs to be told.
yeah. So her Alice McLeod,
Yes, McLeod,
from
yes.
Cass Tech. For
Yes.
those who
Mhm.
need to know more about Alice Coltrane, because I think her and Latif's style or their
yes,
their
absolutely.
creative genius was in harmony with each other,
Absolutely.
as far as the spiritual
Yes.
element and the African
Yeah.
roots and
Yes.
identity that they always
Yes.
cultivated and stood for in their music. So right now we segue into a station ID. Let everybody know who you are again and how to contact you and all of that good
Sure.
stuff.
My name is Lou Fuki.
Yeah.
I can be reached on my couple. I have a couple of platforms. Instagram is probably the easiest one. That's lufuki.detroit. That's LUFUKI.Detroit. And just go ahead and friend me, and you can see all the updates that we have coming up. We have a couple of interesting ones coming up. One is this symposium, which is going to be done in October. Another one is based on Malcolm X, so it should be very interesting.
Yeah. And you're watching Jazz Cats, the coolest show in the world of TV and radio, on the coolest station, WJZZ Cool TV, coolest station in the world. And I thank you personally. My name is Roger Penzabene. I'm the host of this show, and I can't say enough about you guys. And I'm a little rusty. I've been gone for a minute, but I'm back, and I'm gonna bring you the coolest jazz interviews and insights that's in the business, especially in the Detroit metro area. So like us, follow us, share, subscribe, and leave us your comments. You can call in now. The phone lines are open at 313-355-6018, and we appreciate you. And so we're going to get back to the show right now and tell you some more good jazz history and culture and all of that good stuff. So Lafuki, brother, I want to touch on a couple other things you mentioned in your bio, the Muslim aspect of
Yes.
it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So, with my research, my research in undergrad and grad school was really centered on the aspects of culture and jazz.
Okay.
Being a Muslim, I saw or discovered or studied the influence of Islam in jazz music, whether it be from Muslims or Muslim adjacent people. Because at the time, post World War II, people were, African Americans were looking for new ways of expressions and spirituality, that lasted to the 60s and things like that, and on. Just reading about, like for instance, the cultural phenomenon of becoming Muslims in post World War II was something that was of interest to me.
Okay.
Particularly like when the story goes, or the history goes, like when a person became Muslim, they were considered themselves part of the world, as citizens in the world, if you will, as opposed to being dictated by the people who oppressed them. So what I mean by that is, when you have a black person at the time, became Muslim, started studying Arabic, started making Hajj, it was an anomaly, right? It became very contagious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a way, for one thing, it was a way to get off heroin,
Okay.
right? Because you change
The
your diet.
discipline.
Your discipline. You change
Yeah.
your diet. You start praying. You're watching what you eat and things like that.
And your brother's keepers are actually keeping you.
Yes.
Either to avoid the same demon or to just
Yes.
keep you straight.
Yes. I mean, so when you read like how to create such a change, and also, if you will, a threat to the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
People were becoming Muslim so fast, and it was so widespread that at one time in the bebop era, if you were a jazz musician, they would assume that you were Muslim. That's how deep entrenched it was,
Yeah.
right? But it's also it was also a way to self-identify yourself,
Okay.
as opposed to being dictated by your oppressors,
Mhm.
The funny thing is, like, when they started like dressing differently, taking up different languages,
Changing your name.
change your name, they were actually able to get into places, quote unquote, normal black people couldn't get into.
Yeah.
Because the owner of the establishment, whether it's a restaurant or hotel, thought they were from overseas because
Yeah.
they spoke a different language. So they
Yeah.
when they were able to get in these restaurants, because the joke was on them now, right? But that's just Islam was and always been a way of um, um, spiritual upliftment
Okay.
and discipline. I mean, it go into not only music but sports. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali,
Mhm.
even Mike Tyson. But even the Muslim adjacentness is very strong, because even Alice Coltrane was affected by it. John Coltrane was affected by it.
Mhm.
And we talk about luminaries like within a religion like Farrah Sanders and Yusuf Lateef, and the list really goes on.
Yeah.
And they really were cultural trailblazers
Mhm.
in a lot of ways.
And I can appreciate that myself. Um, Detroit, like when you talk about the black nationalists
Mm.
or the militant agenda, and just trying to have some freedom, equality, justice,
Yes.
and some dignity.
Yes.
The Nation of Islam was founded in Detroit.
Absolutely,
So
it
they
is. Yes.
everybody of a certain generation might only know them
Mm.
from Chicago
Yeah.
being headquartered,
Yeah.
but the factual history is Fard Muhammad and Elijah founded it
Yeah,
here.
the first temple was in Detroit.
Right.
Was it's called Wali Muhammad Mosque. It's still here.
Yeah, and they actually had another beginning closer to here before they went through the name
Yeah.
change of Nation of Islam, and then they actually had after they became Nation of Islam, moved on Linwood,
Yes.
and with Temple Number One, or
Yes.
Mosque Number One,
Yeah, Temple Number
and
One.
so
Still
and
there.
so yeah, it's still
Yeah.
there, and anyway, so
Yeah.
I can appreciate
Yeah.
that. Because when I was a kid, they had more of a presence
Mhm.
on the street.
Yeah.
And like you say, it was a time when like you had 10 black people, African American people in the room probably have to better
Yeah.
were Muslims
Yeah.
of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either you know, a lot at that time were Nation of Islam, but it was a few other
Yeah.
Orthodox
Yeah,
Muslims there
it's
as
a
well.
way. I mean, you know, some African Americans, particularly myself, I'm considered a convert. Really finds ourselves in the religion. It ties us back to our native land.
Okay.
You know, in a lot of ways. When Kareem Abdul-Jabbar discovered where he was from, and it was from a predominantly Muslim area, he immediately changed his life in his name. But it gives black people a sense of dignity and discipline, which makes it enticing for people or persons looking for change in his life.
And I thank you for these couple of projects you talked about. I know we're talking about Muslims and everything, and you have a co-project that includes Malcolm X.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do you want to touch on
Yeah,
that?
I'll
real-
touch on that a little bit. I don't
Yeah.
want to give too much information, but we pretty much you covered a little bit of it. So the first temple number one, was here in Detroit, which
Right.
Malcolm X opened. When Malcolm he did that right after he got out of prison,
Okay.
his first missions were actually to jazz clubs,
Okay.
and his affiliation with jazz musicians, his love for them, their love for him, is a conversation that that needs to be expounded upon. It's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm trying to bring forward in a very respectful way,
Okay.
and highlighting those musicians that used to open up for him before he gave his speeches.
Okay. Cool.
And it's focused on in Detroit. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So it takes a little time and tell us. I noticed here on the bio you have a couple of bands.
Yes.
So tell us about those bands
Yes.
and what's the different dynamics about why you need
Yeah.
more than one.
Yeah. Yeah, my partner, my wife Tazine, says the same thing. She said, "What makes this one different than the other?" And at one time, I had a hard time explaining it, but because you know, words can only go so far.
Right.
So Divine Providence is my first band,
Okay.
and that was established when I was in between Flint and Detroit. So it has some musicians from Detroit and Flint, right?
Okay.
That came about because I was just, you know, I said, well, I'm really into this music thing. I think I should, you know, form a band, because me and my friend Aaron, he's a oh God, he's a violinist, the pianist, the djembe player, the voice in the band, and I'm probably missing a couple of other instruments. Some of us are
Okay.
instrumentalists. We got together and we were just jamming like all the time, and then this bass player came, we started jamming, and then things just developed, you know, and the name Divine Providence came from because the ease of it happening, it could only be by divine decree, you know.
Okay.
And so the songs that we do are based on my compositions. It's basically it's an expression of my spirituality. That's
Okay.
that's what it is. And my friends that are in the band, just, you know, they compliment me, and we all trust each other.
Okay.
You know, the other band, Autophasia Psychic Millennium, is based on the methodology of Dr. Yusuf Abdul Latif, which we're taking this methodology and composing music based on his methodology, his approach, which I've probably always been doing. I just didn't know it.
Right.
But usually focusing it on him because of the grandeur of who he is and what he left and what could be implemented in neighborhoods that could benefit from it.
Now-
So it's more like an educational, cultural thing.
Okay. Now I noticed that's the one you have ensemble attached to.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll assume that's a bigger band.
It's really big.
Okay.
So it's members are from Detroit and Chicago.
Okay.
So we made sure that we added Chicago, and that because Chicago scene, the jazz scene, is just amazing.
Yeah.
I love going up there and playing with Angel Badawi, the Dr. Adam Zanalili. But me and Angel, we said we have to do this,
Okay.
and so we got together and formed a band. It's between Detroit and I almost said Oakland and Chicago, split between men and women.
Okay.
And we come up with concepts
So
all
that's a
together.
richer sound.
That's a way. I mean, some of our songs are so long and rich, 30 minutes. And one time we jammed. I'm not joking, for 3 hours one song. And so it's that kind of band, and it's really like it's out there. You know,
Okay.
it's more out there than Divine Providence. And
Okay.
when people heard Divine Providence, they thought it was out there, but the this ensemble is just something else.
Okay, and is this music published? We can pick it up, or it's on
Not yet. So there are a couple live performances that were so great. We're in the process of finding somewhere to press it
Okay,
because they were just
so you captured the recording. Now
we got it. We got the one from two from this year. I'm not gonna say where because I want to still want to surprise everyone.
Okay,
But the performance and recordings was just so outstanding and just and it's mostly based on improvisation.
okay.
That's
What I was gonna say. It's one of them.
Yeah, it's one of those
it won't
things.
happen like
Yeah.
that again.
No, it won't happen like that again.
Yeah.
It's improvisation, but it's also what they call um, instantaneous composing.
Now, which one, if it is, which one do you perform? Which band do you perform with the most, or which one is more popular commercially? Oh, you know what I'm saying? Which is it a difference? Like, do they have? Have you cultivated two different audiences?
Yeah,
or-
two different audiences.
So
because
let
if
us
you
know
see,
what's happening.
if I say APPM, Auto for the Second Millennium,
To me, that sounds heavy. Like
Yeah,
it's some
it's
real
very heavy.
hardcore, artistic, creative.
It's
people.
hardcore because you're talking about Angel Badawi. If you guys don't know about her,
I don't. So
oh
you
my God,
got to turn me on. You're
just
doing
gotta-
it now.
Yeah, she's just another story itself. She's just
Okay.
she's a whole universe itself.
Okay.
And she was my introduction into actually Chicago. So when I went there, I was like just blown away.
Okay. And is she a vocalist, a musician? What is she?
She's a vocalist. She's a pianist. She's a clarinist.
Okay.
And she does experimental music, and she's unapologetically black, strong female. I love her.
Okay, so I got to take some time to jump in. As Angel,
B-A-T, but the weed.
when you see this, I'm personally requesting, inviting, begging that you do an interview on Jazz Cats. It'd be great for me if you come into the studio here in Detroit if you happen to be passing through or doing a gig. But if not, you say yes, we can remote you in and do it virtually.
Absolutely.
But I really, since I'm turned on to you now, I really want to meet you, and I plan on doing a lot of big jazz things through the station brand in Chicago. So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
please bless us with your.
Can I say a little bit
presence.
more about her?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have learned so much about her, how to deal with other entities, as far as like venues, and which I have used throughout, my negotiation or associations and things like that. I've learned so much from her, and it's just an honor because she's very humble, but she's also just unapologetic, and that's something that's just rare,
Okay.
We performed at Carnegie Hall, and she was still herself, and one of the things we try to do as a ensemble, we try to change the notions of what is considered performances.
Okay.
So we're challenging the industry.
Okay.
You know.
And go ahead, before we be wrapping up soon, tell us how to contact you, Angel, etc.
Yeah. Angel, I think on Instagram is Angel the Oracle.
Okay.
That says it all.
Right.
And you get on there, you can see all the things she's doing. She's 1 year she was selected as the best jazz composer in and out of jazz.
Okay.
She's up there with I can't think of the names right now. Another very black popular jazz musician right now. Like she's up there with Kamasi Washington.
Okay.
But she's very humble.
All right. And yourself, give out your information.
Yes, Lufuki Lufuki underscore Detroit. Lufuki spelled Lufuki underscore Detroit. You can follow me, and I have all the information about all my projects, what we're doing, what we've done, and just my crazy ideas.
And of course, you're watching Jazz Cats on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Like us, follow us, share, subscribe, all that good yada yada yada. And we will be here every week. So you know, if you missed it live, or you only heard bits and pieces, or you heard anything of this that you missed, and you want to turn your others on to it, we're on demand. You can watch us on demand, play it back anytime at your convenience, send it to a friend, etc. So please support the station, support Brother Lafuki, and check out the music and check him out, especially if you have that common mindset that he's talking about, because it's different. It is not commercial, and is, you know, so to me it sounds very organic and pure. And so we support it here at WJZZ. We support him, and we're working with him for future projects. So please follow Brother Lafuki and follow the station. So as we get ready in our last couple of minutes, man, is there anything we missed that you want to tighten up on and say?
So,
you got the last couple of minutes.
I think we touched on a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just so much to say about each project.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough. We can sit here and talk for another 3-4 hours and never cover it.
I keep thinking about being a bully and giving this show more time, but then I know others gonna want it, and I'm not gonna do it. So I try to, like, you know, stay humble and not be a bully around here. But hey, man, I gotta personally thank you.
Thank you.
Like tonight, you turned me on to Angel.
Yes.
And I'm still working on how to say these names, man.
It took me a minute. So
And I should know better, because my last name is a tongue twister for a lot of people. But
You have to
anyway,
challenge them, you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
some of the projects, you know, that you exposed me to, not just tonight, but since we met.
Yes.
So I count it as a privilege
Yes.
to be associated with you.
Yes.
And
Thank
look
you.
forward to doing things together. Of course, the station
Yeah.
is going to support what all you do.
Appreciate
We
it.
can't wait to get some of your music in rotation.
Thank you.
And,
It's coming up.
and get some of
Yeah.
these other things going on. But yeah, we're going to get out of here and wrap up on time. So thank you
Thank you.
sincerely. And maybe we got to come back, man. So as this
absolutely.
progresses. So
not going anywhere.
yep. So everybody, hey, thank you for tuning in, and we're going to say good night. And look for me. I'm getting ready to do this new thing on YouTube called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We'll probably be jumping that off on Saturday or so. But start looking for that, because we're trying to literally build a global jazz community. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Send us your ideas, send us your critiques, all of that. So thank you for watching. Continue to keep watching the station. We got the Unique Truth coming on next with your host, Shar Jones. So check her out, and we're going to say good night. Good night.
Peace.